Imagine building a brand new country from scratch. Picture a massive stone fortress on a high cliff, pulling up a heavy wooden drawbridge to keep the world out. In global politics, that idea is called sovereignty. It gives a state the supreme legal and political authority to govern its own territory and the people inside it, without any higher external boss telling it what to do. For centuries, the ideal model, often called Westphalian sovereignty after a 1648 peace treaty, worked exactly like that fortress. It was a rule designed to stop neighbors from meddling in each other's business, making each state the absolute ruler of its own space. But looking around the world today, you have to ask, does any country actually function as a completely closed-off, isolated fortress? In our connected world, sovereignty works as a flexible tool that countries constantly negotiate. To see how that works in practice, we have to look at sovereignty in two ways. There is external sovereignty, your legal right to be recognized on the map by other countries. And then there is internal sovereignty, your practical ability to keep the peace inside your borders. A clear example of these two ideas clashing is the nation of Somalia. On paper, Somalia has strong external sovereignty. Other countries recognize its legal title, it has defined international borders, and its government holds a seat at the United Nations. But inside those borders, the story is different. For decades, Somalia struggled with weak internal sovereignty. The government hasn't always been able to control the use of force, which allows heavily armed groups to operate freely and rule over large pieces of territory. Having the official legal title to a state means little to the people living there if the government lacks the practical capacity to enforce laws and keep them safe. On the other end of the spectrum, some very stable countries voluntarily choose to lower their drawbridges and share their authority. This is called pooled sovereignty. The most developed example is the European Union. Here, 27 member states have agreed to make shared rules in a common parliament for things like trade and how people move between countries. It is a calculated trade-off. An individual state gives up some of its power to make rules entirely on its own. In exchange, it gains access to a massive shared market and far more bargaining power on the global stage than it would ever have alone. Of course, some people view this as a loss of control. In 2016, voters in the United Kingdom chose to reject pooled sovereignty. The Brexit vote was a move to pull the drawbridge up and regain independent lawmaking authority. Yet, leaving a network doesn't erase a country's need to trade. The UK regained its formal legal independence, but its businesses still have to follow many of the EU's rules to sell their goods. Only now, the UK has no direct voice in writing those rules. This brings us to interdependence, the reality that modern problems like a financial crisis, a global pandemic, or heavy pollution simply do not stop at political borders. In 2019, massive fires swept through the Amazon rainforest in Brazil. Because of the forest's critical role in the global climate system, this domestic issue became a major worldwide concern. Initially, the Brazilian government leaned on traditional sovereignty. They argued that because the forest was inside their borders, their environmental policy was an internal matter that was no one else's business. Other countries disagreed. Arguing that state authority comes with global responsibilities, they used diplomatic pressure and threatened to block a major trade agreement until Brazil took action to stop the fires. When our environments and economies are this tightly woven together, a country's territory can no longer serve as an absolute shield against international accountability. Between global supply chains, multinational corporations, and a changing climate, treating a country like an isolated stone fortress is no longer practical. Exercising sovereignty today means managing a complex web of trade-offs, treaties, and international laws. Within this network, power is not equal. States with fewer resources can be overwhelmed by the pressure of these connections, while strong states use it to amplify their wealth and influence. Every country has to balance its internal control with its external recognition, weighing the desire for total independence against the clear benefits of sharing authority with others. Sovereignty has evolved. True power today comes from how smartly a country navigates the global network.